and welcome back to the second part of the review for different seasons. Again, that's the Stephen King short stories compilation. The second story, as I mentioned in the previous episode, is Apt Pupil, and I was pleasantly surprised about how much I liked the story. I didn't have high expectations, I guess, because as I mentioned in the previous episode, I watched the movie first. And the movie was utter shit. Even Ian McKellen couldn't save that movie.
I want to hear about it.
Hear about what?
Everything.
What everything?
Everything they're afraid to show us in school.
Far from the shadow of suspicion, far from the scene of any crime, Todd Bowden has discovered a secret.
If you could let me in for a minute, I just want to talk.
Talk? I don't have anything to say to you, boy.
You were there. You did those things.
I'm an American. You've no right to come here and say these lies about me.
I have your fingerprints. I have your photographs.
What do you want?
I want to hear about it. Everything.
Between innocence and experience.
To the whole world, I am a monster. And you have known about me all this time.
Between curiosity.
What did it feel like?
And conscience.
Lying to judges and reporters isn't as easy as you think. Can you do that? I know I can.
Todd Bowden is about to learn a valuable lesson.
I wonder if you'd mind if I ask you a personal question.
Not at all.
What'd you do during the war?
I know something about you. So many things can happen in between.
Each knew something the other wanted to keep secret.
Boys, when it comes down to the cellar, you're not gonna believe this.
If you don't believe in the existence of evil, you have a lot to learn.
Todd Bowden, yes, that was his name. He wanted to know everything. That was how he put it, yes. Everything.
It was so bad. Bryan Singer, the director, completely missed the mark, and it was honestly, I would just skip it. Don't watch it. If you are a fan of Stephen King and you haven't watched it, don't. If you like movies, there's tons of other movies to watch, so please don't watch it. I mean, it's a free world, so if you do want to watch it, go ahead, but honestly, the story is so much better, it's so much stronger. It's so much more thorough. So the premise of the story is this kid, 14-year-old kid, who by chance discovers that there is a war criminal living in his town from the Nazi era. He was one of the high-ranking officials in several of the concentration camps, and he was responsible for the death of many people. So he was living in this small town in California with a new identity, kind of keeping to himself, a loner, smoked like a chimney, drunk like a sponge. Not a very nice person, all in all. But we don't know much about him at the beginning of the story. We think he's just kind of like trying to keep to himself, to retire from his past. Maybe I think at the beginning I had a sense that maybe he regretted what he did. the way that the story is narrated, it kind of gives us a sense that maybe that's what's going on here. And then this kid comes into the story, and right off the bat he wants to hear all about this war events firsthand. From the beginning we get a sense that the kid is a sociopath, if not a psychopath, and he just wants to know all the details. Day in, day out, he goes to this man's house, he blackmails him, tells him that if he doesn't tell him, he will let the authorities know of who he is, and that will lead to his deportation to Israel, where he will be tried for his war crimes. So the man in his 70s is afraid. The story, by the way, in the book takes place in the 70s, and there's one thing that I really enjoyed. At the beginning of the story, the old man, references ever so slightly to Andy Dufresne from the previous story. That's like maybe a paragraph, but I thought that was very cleverly done, and I enjoyed that. And yeah, so in the book it takes place in the 70s. In the movie they moved it up to the 80s. So yeah, I mean, I guess it still works, because somebody who was in World War II in the 80s, which was like early 40s, if he's still around in the 80s, he could have been in his 30s or 40s back then, so it would still make him alive in the 80s. But anyway, that was the first kind of thing that I noticed that was different from the book to the movie. Other than that, I mean, everything else really. In the book you see how they have this sort of symbiotic relationship where they're kind of become codependent on each other. They hate each other, but at the same time they need each other. You can see how this is developing in the book, where the kid starts having nightmares. He starts doing really badly in school, whereas he used to be a bright student. His grades start to falter, and he's too preoccupied with all these stories. Of course he blames it on the old man. It's all his fault. This kid doesn't even take responsibility for anything. Everything is everybody else's fault. Nothing is his responsibility. We can see that he despises his parents in a way, and he just doesn't have any moral compass like any sociopath, right? Or actually, I think he's more of a psychopath. Anyway, all this talking about things start to bring the worst out of each other, and the old man, we discover, has been keeping up with his evil ways by capturing stray cats and baking them in his oven, which is pretty gruesome in the book. In the movie he tried, but the cat got away. I guess it was too much for TV. I don't know. But I don't even know why they even bothered to put that there. So it just fell off. Like, it just came off really poorly in the movie by doing it that way. The second thing that we realize is that the old man hasn't really changed. He is still the person that he was. I guess a leopard doesn't change his spots. And he starts to become even worse. He moves from cats to human beings. And he chooses homeless people because they're an easy target. He figures somebody will miss them. I mean, that's not in the story, it doesn't say why, but I'm guessing my interpretation was because homeless people don't really have any relatives. They disappear. A lot of times the cops don't care and whatnot. So they become easy targets for this man's depravity, and also targets for the kids. And that's the thing that the movie doesn't touch at all. The kid actually starts to show his true colors. He starts engaging in a relationship with the girl just so that he will appear normal. He figures that that's what boys his age do. They date girls, because the story kind of moves in a few years. So it starts when he's 14 and it kind of goes up to when he's around 17 or 18. And he fantasizes about killing people on the highway with his shotgun, and he just, or his rifle, I forget which one, and he starts killing people as well, also homeless people that he finds out on the streets, that he lures by telling them that if they buy him alcohol, he'll share it with them. And so starts the killing spree. In the movie, none of that happens. There's only one event where the old man gets this homeless guy into his place, but the way that the movie tells it is as if the guy insists to be led into his house so that he give him money, give him a hot shower, something to drink. In the book, it's not like that. In the book, the old man is actually seeking them out and luring them into his place so that he can kill them. And yeah, I mean, in the book, this happens over a period of time. There's many victims, both from the man, the old man, and the kid. They both kill several people. Nobody suspects either one, obviously. And in the movie, there's just that one case. In the movie, this guy gets in his apartment, he tried to kill him, he gets him down on the basement, and the fight ensues, the guy appears to be dead, the old man gets a heart attack, he calls the kid comes, all very compact. Not very sensical, it doesn't really fit together. Whereas in the book, as it's developing, you can see how they start to kind of move into the darker sides of their beings, right? It starts with the stories, with the nightmares, with the killing of animals. The boy, he kills a bird that's hurt. That actually happens both in the movie and in the book, but the way it happens is different on both ends. And it makes sense in the story in the book. It makes a lot of sense. In the movie, everything just goes really quickly. We don't really understand, I guess. Yeah, we understand that they're both psychopaths and this is what they do, but in the movie, the kid doesn't actually kill anybody. And that's, I think, a big part of the story. The fact that the kid is just as sick and depraved as the old man. So in I mentioned how the events happen in the movie. In the book, yes, there's a homeless guy in his apartment. He actually did kill him. He had the heart attack when he was burying him in his basement, and there's an investigation after, because the man goes to the hospital because of his heart attack, and there's a letter, supposedly, which is why the kid went to see the man. He didn't actually tell his parents that he had a heart attack. He just went, said that he wanted a very important letter to be read, and he left, went to the house, and once he was there, they called the ambulance and all that stuff. The man ended up in the hospital, and the letter disappeared, and then they found out who the man actually was. So when the old man realized that he was he had no out, he decided to kill himself. The way that it happened in the book and in the movie, again, differ extremely from the story. So that was that part. And then the thing that bothered me so much about the movie is that there's no investigation into the kid. The police actually kind of investigate him, they question him, they think that he's hiding something, they think that he might be responsible for the deaths of the homeless people, or some of them. They know that he is covering for the men because obviously they found the bodies in the basement. And eventually, when he figures out that, you know, he's kind of being suspected, he decides to go and fulfill his fantasy of killing people driving on the highway. And that's how that story ends in the book. So I would really skip the movie and just read the book. If you like to read, definitely. If you don't like to read and you're just into movies, then just forget that one, watch something else. And that's it for this episode. Next episode, again, I will be talking about the third story, The Body. And I hope you guys continue to watch. I hope you're liking these episodes, and have a good one. Peace out.